Okay, before we go any further, I just wanted to give you a few tips on using text uh, in images, particularly uh, on the album covers that you've designed. So let's look at some of the examples that I've created. So if I just select the first one and zoom in, what you need to be careful of is that you use text carefully, and that the positioning of it and the alignment of it in relation to lines of text, separate lines of text, in this case home and Manic Street Preachers, that there is a relationship between those two pieces of text, and that relationship is balanced. And also the alignment in relation and the positioning in relation to any images as well on your designs. So, for example, this my first idea here, I've decided to use Home as the title of the album and then Manic Street Preachers is the band name. And what I've decided to do is to align it left. So if we zoom in even further, we can see that the H and the H and the M are in line with each other, slightly out actually. So if I just select that, and with the arrow key I can just nudge it. So you see I'm nudging it left and right. And so the relationship between each of these is that it's aligned left. So the H and the M are in line with each other. So that's the first thing I've thought of. Second thing is the space between each line of text. So you can see here on the word, the gap between home and Manic Street Preachers. If I actually insert a line, so there's a line, trying to draw a straight line, it's not letting me for some reason. So let's try that again. Insert straight line. I'll just draw it up here. So you can see that this line here, the top of the text, the top of Manic Street Preachers, and the bottom of home, there is a gap. Okay, there is a space, and I've made a decision about that space. I haven't just put that randomly in that place. I've probably based it around the size of the text, how readable I want it to be. If I pushed the word home, if I push that down too close, it might not be readable as a separate word. It is, because I've made it bigger. So the word home is a larger point size, 11.4. Manic Street Preachers is smaller. So we're also using hierarchy there. So the hierarchy of this text is you read the word home because that's the name of the album, and then you read the word of the artist. I could switch them around, so Manic Street Preachers is at the top and home is at the bottom. If I wanted people to read the name of the band first, but I don't. I want them to know the name of the album first. There's also space. Okay, so the space around text is very important. So the space here, if I just draw a box there, and if I draw another box here, this is pretty much the same. It's slightly this space on the left hand side between the left hand side of the H and the M, the beginning of those words, is probably a little bit wider than the space above it just here, but on balance it's about the same visually. So I've left space as well around the text, and I've thought about that space as well. If I put the text too close to the edge, which isn't good practice, because when album covers, posters, flyers, whatever kind of editorial material is printed, then it's also cut usually as well to size, and if that cut was too close to the edge, then it might actually cut some of the text off. So you can see the effect that has now when I've pushed it a bit closer to the edge. If I put it back and give it some space, I'm much happier with that space there as it is. That the image seems to me a lot more balanced, because obviously I'm looking at the lines that I've drawn here and here on the left hand side here. And I'm also trying to balance this area with my shoulder, I suppose, because there's the opposite corners of the image. I feel like I've balanced that with the text here in the top left hand corner. That's balanced out with my kind of my left shoulder on the right hand side of the image here. So that's my first design. So the space around the text, between the text and the edge of the image, is important. Aligning it, aligning them in some way to each other, align it left or align it right. We'll talk about centering in just a moment. On this second design, I've decided to push the word home a little bit further away, and to balance with the 3 black circles on the right hand side, I've decided to have the text read downwards on the left hand side. Looking at the image now, I might actually balance that out a little bit better by actually having the word home the correct way around, and just creating a kind of right angled corner there. I actually prefer that, but yes, these little tweaks make a lot of difference. But this area here, the home and the M, again, I'm looking at the top of the H and I'm aligning it with the left hand side of the M there. So that, again, if you draw a line, then the home is aligned with the M of Manic Street Preachers. If we drew a rectangle on that corner, then that rectangle should line up with the bottom of the Manic Street Preacher text, okay, which is on the left hand side, and the top of the word home. Okay, so again, intentional that I align them with the text, these 2 items of text with each other. And there's also a gap between the word home and the top of the M. I could push them closer, but it's not as easy to read. The M almost becomes part of that word. So if I push it away, then yes, it's clear that that is a word on its own. And the image balances out with the circles on the right. The text balances out on the left hand side here with the circles on the right hand side. So again, I'm really thinking carefully about where the text goes. I'm not just randomly putting the text in, because it is very important that you really think about the relationship between the text and the image. On this one, of course, if I take the text away, for me, there's an obvious space here at the top for the word home, but I haven't randomly placed that in. I've thought about the space here and the space here. Now, because the triangle comes very close, not very close, but close to that edge there, what I'm trying to do there is make that space the same as this space here above the word home. Okay, so I'm not, the word home doesn't begin on the edge, on the corner of the triangle. It could do, and that looks okay, but I'm happier with the home kind of almost centered in the space that's been created. So that would be the space I'm looking at there, and the word home is centered in that space. Obviously, Manic Street Preachers, I've aligned that with the edge or the side of the triangle there, so I've twisted it around. But again, I'm thinking about the space here. Obviously, it's not a square, but I'm thinking about the space there, and I'm thinking about the space there as well. I'm thinking about the distance between the top of Manic Street Preachers and the triangle. Looking at that, I could bring home down a little bit, so that space matches here. So if you imagine there was a black line around that triangle, that's how thick that black line would be. So I'm being very intentional about the placing of my text and the alignment, the relationship between the text and the relationship between the image. That's the same principle with all of my ideas. I've always thought about the positioning of the text, always thought about the relationship between the photograph, any lines, any objects, any shapes that I've drawn on top of the images. With this one, for instance, there is a shape in the center here, this rectangle. So I'm trying to emulate that rectangle with the space here and with the space here, because from a distance, when we can't read text, we naturally will see, our eyes will see text as a shape. Okay, in this case, a rectangle, a white rectangle, and a white rectangle here as well. If you squint your eyes and make those blurred, then you could break that down into a rectangle and another rectangle here. So I'm trying to, I almost create this diagonal line between the text, the shape in the middle, and the text at the bottom here. The Manic Street Preachers almost through the center of my face. On this one, it's pretty obvious what I've done is I've tried to fit the text into this top rectangle here. So if that was a rectangle there, which it is, obviously 2 squares, concentric squares, but I'm trying to fit the text into, tuck it into there. I might nudge that up a little bit if we zoom in and make sure that the M and the H line up. I'm a bit much happy with that. What I've tried to do there, I've just spotted that the gap at the top and the gap at the bottom is slightly different. So again, if you make those the same, and obviously the gap at the edge here as well, just use these rectangles to highlight that. If they are the same, then it just creates that sense of harmony with the text that you're using. So the message from me is, and the tip from me is to make sure that you go back to your text and make sure that it's not just an afterthought, that you have actually really considered where the text is going to go and how it relates to your image and any shapes and any forms on your design. So go back to your final designs, all of them, and just tweak the text. Just look at the text. Make sure, for instance, if that was there like that, that just doesn't look. It just doesn't look right. The Manic Street Preachers is not in line with the home. If we undo that and show that looks much better. So go back and align things. Think about their relationship. Like this that's too close to the edge. A bit of breathing space around the text. Actually, on this image here now, I've noticed that it's a bit too close together, because if I look at it from a distance, they kind of merge together, the two words. So I'm just going to push them apart. Using the arrow keys is a good thing to do, because you can nudge things and push them around and zoom in as well. Okay, so it's not until you zoom in that you really start to see the small little changes that you need to make your designs that much better in relation to the text that you've used. Okay, so have a go at that. Go back to the text, have a go at tweaking it and refining it, really refining it. When you do that, I would copy and paste your slide, so you have another slide, and leave the text as it was, and then make your changes so that we can see how you've refined the text on those ideas.